Hello and welcome to LionWing Talks, a weekly show where we discuss all things Lionwing, tabletop games, Japanese games, and localization. I'm your host, Bradley Hailstorm, founder and president of this thing called Lionwing. This is episode 27 for August 4th, 2021. Hey, if you didn't hear, we announced a game last week. We're going to talk about that game here in a moment. But if this is your first time joining us, either live or on playback, hey, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. Much appreciated. Of course, if you are a returning viewer, as always, I love you guys. If you can join us in real time, this show goes down. The show goes down every Wednesday at 9 p.m. ET here on Twitch. If you can't join us live, which I understand, not everyone can set aside time to catch a show on Twitch at 9 at night. You can always catch us the next day on YouTube, on playback, because the video does typically load overnight, and then it'll go up sometime early morning or midday on Thursday. So if this is your first time, not only, hey, welcome, but we have a format to this show. We're actually going to break the format tonight, but typically our format is we start off with our first segment, which is some listener submitted questions. I provide answers to those things. I answer questions in the chat in real time if I get them. Then we go into our project updates section where I give updates on all of our projects. And then lately I've been going over some tabletop gaming news, just my own musings on a couple things that have happened in the industry in the past week. And then we close out the show. But like I said, I'm breaking the format tonight. I'm doing things a little different. Because we're going to start talking about, our latest project, which we're not going to do just yet, but we're going to start there. Then we're going to go into our project updates, and I'm actually going to save the listener submitted questions for the second segment instead of the first segment. So, if this is your first journey, first foray into the world of Linewing Talks, know that the show typically doesn't follow this format, but I'm changing it up. So maybe this is like the best time to join the show. Regardless of whether you're a first-time viewer or you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with me tonight. Even if you're not catching it live, thanks for taking the time to check out the video. We've all got competing priorities. There's like a shit ton of things you could be doing instead of watching this video or listening to me talk, and yet you're making time to at least have me on in the background, and that means a lot to me. So truly, thank you. I'm eternally grateful for you taking the time out of your day to check this out, to check this show out. So hopefully I'll make it worth your while. We've got a lot of news to go over tonight, so hopefully it will be worth your while, because I've got updates on every project tonight, it's always my favorite show, my favorite type of show, when I can provide updates on every project. That doesn't always happen because there's not always movement taking place with each project. But, this is one of those weeks where everything's sort of coalesced and everything's making progress in some way, shape, or form. And I want to talk about that tonight, which I'm really excited about. Sequence break, hurrah, Fry Guy Fern says in the chat. Yeah, we're doing things a little different tonight. Af, one of our regulars, says, genuinely think the Q&A is better at the end. Yeah, so I'm changing up the format tonight because I want to talk about Picaresque Roman first and lead things off with that upcoming project because it's new. I want to talk about it. I'm excited. But I am sort of using this as a bit of a pilot to see if I like talking about project updates first rather than Q&A. And I actually do think and have thought for quite a while that it probably makes more sense to go over project updates first and then get into the Q&A, because sometimes people just want to watch or join this stream just to get the updates on the projects that they've backed or the projects that they're keeping an eye on, and they don't care so much about the Q&A section, or they don't care about hearing me talk about other tabletop games. They just want to get to the crux of what's going on with Lionwing and then get out. So it might actually make more sense going forward. I'm not committing to one way or the other right now necessarily, but it might make more sense going forward to lead off with our project updates section, then go into our Q&A and sort of finish the show with the Q&A and then the tabletop gaming news. We'll see. I'm trying this format on tonight, and I'll see if I like the way it fits, I guess you could say. We got some folks in the chat. Hey, thanks for joining us live. If you got a question for me, drop it in the chat. I've many times said that my favorite questions are the ones that I just get on the fly in the chat where I can't prepare for them. I think you get the best answers. I think you get the most honest answers when you just sort of ask someone on the spot and they've got no time to prepare. However, I will say that I typically don't have time to prepare even for the questions that have been submitted ahead of time. Now, some of that is by design because I don't like to see the questions too much in advance. Now, invariably, when I do show notes, I will see the questions at least once because I'm copying those questions from Discord or social media or Kickstarter into a Word document that I'm using as my run of show. So I'll see those questions usually at least once there. So I don't really have like a whole lot of prep time, even if you give them to me ahead of time, but I'm definitely not getting any prep time if you just drop them in the chat. You don't have to wait for the Q&A section to drop me a question in the chat. If you drop me one right now, I bet I'll answer it. Now, if I'm talking about something I really want to talk about, I'll hold off on answering that right away, but I definitely will get to it. So that's one of the perks of joining live, is you can always try to catch me by surprise, catch me off guard with a question, and I will definitely answer that. So we've got some updates tonight, but I want to talk about our upcoming project. Our upcoming project is a very special one for many reasons. First and foremost is it is our entry into the tabletop RPG space. So up to this point, LionWing has localized and published card games or board games. Mostly card games, but card games and board games. Those comprise our last 5 projects, right? 5, which means those are all of our projects. That's been sort of our bread and butter. This, though, is a big jump. It's a complete change of genre, like in a big way. It's not like a change in like card game genre. We're not going from like a competitive PvP card game to a cooperative card game. No, this is completely shifting and going in a very new direction, and that is the direction of a role-playing game. So our first foray, there's that word again, I think I already used that one. Our first foray into that space is going to be by way of a Japanese tabletop RPG called Picaresque Roman. Now, we've given the game a subtitle in Japan. Picaresque Roman is just called Picaresque Roman. It's in its 5th edition at this point. It's a very, very popular doujin, Japanese tabletop role-playing game. And doujin just means a self-published game. You can think of the word doujin as kind of meaning the same thing as like an indie game, an indie project, self-funded, self-published, that kind of thing. Picaresque Roman is one of the biggest, let's say indie, Japanese tabletop RPGs on the market right now. And it's been very, very well received. That's why there have been 5 editions. It's even gotten its own crowdfunding campaign in Japan. I think that was 2 years ago, 2019, which feels both like yesterday and a decade ago because time is meaningless anymore. It's a cool game. Japan clearly likes it, and I clearly liked it because although tabletop games in general are still a niche thing in Japan, I would say tabletop RPGs are even more of a niche in Japan. And yet, there are plenty of tabletop RPGs coming out of Japan. And I could have chosen any of those, especially for the first project, for the first of its kind. Obviously, someone in my position who's running a company, sorry if I just hit the mic there, you would imagine, and you would be right in imagining this, that I would want to come out of the gates with my strongest project that I could in that space, in this case, the RPG space. So I could have chosen any of the tabletop RPGs out there. The ones who are looking for a localization partner. Not everyone's looking to do that. But I could have chosen a lot of other games, but I didn't. I chose Picaresque Roman, which says that this is a special one. It's special for a lot of reasons. So we have given the game a subtitle for its Western release, and that subtitle is A Requiem for Rogues. So not only fun to say, and not only does it look cool on the front of a book, but it's got meaning. I won't divulge what that subtitle has reference to, but this is a game about being a rogue, about being a villain in some ways. Not like a superhero comic book villain. I'm just talking, just kind of like a bad dude, a bad person being going against the grain of society. And this game gives folks an opportunity to play that role. The game is unique in a lot of ways. And that's part of why I chose it. Now, if you've spent any time in the Discord or if you've watched any of these past LionWing Talks shows, you know that I put aesthetic pretty much above everything else. I will play a bad game if its aesthetic is good, but I typically won't play a good game if its aesthetic is bad. Call me what you will for that. I don't care. That's just the way I am. And that mentality carries over into what games I check out in Japan. And it also comes into play when I'm choosing the games that I would like to localize and publish for the English market. So I say that ultimately to say that Picaresque Roman is a beautiful game. Now, for the English release, we have added a ton of new art to the game. So the game is, it's in its fifth edition. It's undergone some changes over the years. It's undergone some layout and format changes. It's also undergone some graphics and illustration changes. The fifth edition in Japan is certainly I think the cleanest and best looking product yet. For the English release, though, we worked with the design team, Group SGR, to provide a bunch of new graphics for the game, for its English release. It's got a new layout. It's got new graphic design elements. It's got over a dozen pieces of new art. It's a cleaner product in terms of its artistic value and its aesthetic presentation, its visual presentation. So we took a game that was already pretty, and I think we made it even prettier. I'm really excited about that because not only did we get to do that, but we got to do it in tandem with the designers. Now, if you've watched any of these shows, especially if you watched probably 4 or 5 episodes ago, you know where I stand on retheming games. That I don't love retheming games. And I don't love retheming games because I think it's disrespectful to the original designer and artist's vision of their game. After all, it is their game. It feels a little arrogant to think that I might know better about how to present this product than the person who designed the game. So I'm not like a huge person that just totally overhauls a game and gives it this new look. That's not really what Linewing is about. What I do love, however, is when I get to work with the original design team to say, hey, how can we enhance, add to, make better this game that you already have? What are things that you wished you could have done, but either time didn't allow or resources didn't allow? Because we've got the time and we've got the resources. Let's make this the game you always wanted it to be. Now, some people say this is the exact game that I always wanted it to be, and I want it to be this way. And I'm like, cool, that's good enough for me. Picaresque Roman was an opportunity, though, for us to make an awesome game even more awesome by working with that original design team and the newest illustrator to not only make all of the art in the game consistent, but to just bring it to life and add new illustrations, give illustrations of its characters in new ways, give illustrations of its setting, because there were no images of the game's setting in any of the releases in Japan. And so I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity to like flesh out this really, really, really distinct and badass universe, and let's do it through some illustrations, and let's make sure it's the same artist who has done the character illustrations, the replay illustrations, etc. If I forget to tell you guys what a replay is, remind me. I'm hoping I will remember on my own. In the past, even in its 5th edition in Japan, there were multiple artists handling the graphics in the game. There was an artist who was handling the character graphics. There was an artist handling the graphic design elements and the layout. And then there was an artist handling the replay art. I didn't like that. So I said, hey, can we use the same art, the character illustrator, for every bit of art in this game? And Seagray, the main designer of Picaresque Roman, was like, hell yeah, let's do it. If you've got the money for it, I'm totally down. So I said, I do, and I am also. So that's what we did. So the game is beautiful. And that was the primary driving force behind Picaresque Roman and my initial interest in it. But damn, is it a cool game. It is not your standard TTRPG. It's not. It can be played through a campaign, but it's really designed for one-shots and one-off scenarios. You can link those scenarios together like you can in any TTRPG, but there's not like a persistent level system necessarily, unless you want to house rule something or create that with your GM. But this really is a game that's meant to get in, tell a story, a contained story, and then get out. And how it's been designed really allows for focused, intentional storytelling that you can see the beginning and end of in a single setting. Again, if you're the type of group that wants to extend that over the course of however long you want, cool. You've got the ability to do that in this game. And also, if you're someone who's like, yo, I just want to like play a single story and I've only got like 2 to 4 hours to kill, this is also your game. And I like that. It's also distinct from other tabletop RPGs because it's got some PvP elements in it. You're cooperating with your fellow player. You're also competing against them because someone in the group is a traitor who is sort of working with the GM. So it's just there's a lot going on in Picaresque Roman that just isn't happening elsewhere. Not when you combine all of its elements. Sure, there are games that that might have a similar tone, that might have similar mechanics, but Picaresque is unique in that it's got a unique tone, it's got unique art, it's got unique mechanics, and it's presented in a way that's very different from a traditional Western TRPG. And when you know all the when all of those factors converge to create this one product that we just call Picaresque Roman, you get something that, I mean, I don't want to sound like too hyperbolic, but you get something that's like one of a kind, which is very cool. And that's, if you look at any of our past games, you know that I try to find games that, yes, are pretty and have that anime aesthetic, but that offer experiences that you're not really going to get elsewhere. You know, even going back to our first project, Sonoma Coliseum, you're not really finding that game out any other place, you know? Testament, yeah, there's tons of boss battlers, but they don't handle the genre the same way that Testament does. The same could be said for the accessibility and the uniqueness of Wild Hunt Festival and Gun and Gun and Embryo Machine. So clearly I like finding games that feel different, and Picaresque is absolutely no different. Sorry that the stream went down there for a minute. That's a bummer, but I'm glad you're back. Af in the chat said, being a Yakuza, that's what he's trying to say. Yeah, well, actually, so there are classes in the game, go figure. They are called gigs. So you've got main gigs and then you've got side gigs. Main gigs are kind of like your core class that are going to determine all of your base stats. We call those main gigs. And then you've got side gigs, which are going to supplement your main gig in some way. They're going to add they're going to add a skill, they're going to add a stat difference, a stat bonus, and they're going to add narrative flavor to your character. So the cool thing is there are 5 main gigs in the game and then 21 side gigs. So, you know, you can mix and match quite a bit in this game. And since you brought up the word Yakuza, Af, one of the main gigs is a Yakuza. Now, the Yakuza in Picaresque Roman are different from Japan proper Yakuza because the setting of Picaresque Roman, which is in this place just called the city, things operate differently than they do in the outside world. They operate differently than they do in Japan proper. So the Yakuza have a presence in the city. They are a faction in the city. But there are numerous other criminal factions and criminal elements that are just as important, that have just as much influence and have just as much notoriety as the Yakuza do in the city. So they are not like, you know, the number one criminal entity in the city. They are in many ways kind of like just another player, which is cool because there are a lot of different factions vying for control in the city. And the city is like this, it's this outcast society that's fairly lawless, and yet there are rules, but they're kind of established by the people that make up the city and not by a governing body, because there's none of that in the city. So it's this lawless zone where kind of like the most ruthless and the most corrupt are the ones who are kind of running the show. It's kind of like whoever has the most power is running this thing, which isn't very different from the real world. and yet how it's handled here, how there's constant kind of like betrayals, there's constant violence in the city. It creates this unique setting where you, as the player, have to find out how you're going to work within the unique confines of the city, because its rules are different than the rules you would anticipate in the real world. And so the game requires a little bit of a different approach from its players and from its GM, especially from its GM. So the GM has a traditional GM role in Picaresque Roman, but the GM can actually also play a character in Picaresque Roman in some ways. I mean, certainly the GM is always playing characters in any game, but the GM's involvement with the characters is a little different here, because in many ways it's more involved, and in other ways it's like not anywhere close to being as involved as a traditional GM is in other traditional tabletop RPGs. I think I said in last week's show that the GM in Picaresque Roman is less the driver and more the passenger, whereas I think if you grab something like D&D, the GM is more the driver and the players are the passengers. So I like that this game kind of takes that tried and true formula, tips it on its tips it on its ear a little bit, and says, all right, now everyone, GM included, figure out how you're going to balance all of this stuff amidst this format and this template that you're not going to find in most other tabletop RPGs. So I like the fact that it requires players to reconceptualize how they even engage with a game like this. That's really fun to me. And that's part of what creates the game's distinction and unique factor. And I think in an industry where there's new product coming out and dozens of products being released on Kickstarter every month, if not every week, you got to do something different. And so not only does this game present itself differently visually, but it presents itself different mechanically, and I like that. The game is all grayscale, so it's monochromatic. It's presented like a manga, so it is black and white, which I love. That was a design choice. Group SDR could have created a color-based book, and they chose not to. Now, a lot of Japanese and I wouldn't say a lot, I'd say most, if not all, Japanese tabletop RPGs utilize the monochromatic approach. But this one feels less like we're just doing it because that's the industry standard here in Japan, and more of we're doing it because there's a reason for this. And you can, how we localize the game and just how the game is written in its native language, you kind of get that vibe of like, oh, this is like, this should be black and white. Like, I don't want to see color in this game. You know what I mean? I don't want to see bright, vibrant hues popping off the page. Like, I want this to be like dark and gritty and grungy, and in its rawest form possible. And I think the grayscale approach to the entire book really does that. Af in the chat says monochromatic always saves money when producing for the ink. Actually, okay, so yes, that is technically true, but you're talking like a couple $100, which is absolutely nothing. That might as well be pennies when you're printing games. It actually doesn't save you much at all. So let's say you're printing 1,000 copies of a color book that was 150 pages long. You're probably looking at $8,000 to print that book, maybe 9. Let's say it's 9 to print that same book with the same parameters but in black and white, like 8,400, 8,500. So like you don't really save any money there. That is a misnomer. You would assume that, oh yeah, like it's black and white, you'd probably just cut your cost in half, and it's like, no, we shaved off like $300. So while technically, yes, you do save money, not really. So yeah, that's Picaresque Roman. It is launching on August 24th. We've got a lander page up right now. You can find it on our social. Obviously, we've been tweeting it and posting to Facebook, Instagram, and all that stuff. Daily, you may have seen some of the ads come across your Facebook or your Instagram in specific, those two. If you haven't yet, don't be alarmed, because our ad marketing campaign won't really ramp up until the last 2 weeks. Really the last 10 days, and we're still 3 weeks out. But a lot of people have found the game just from social media ads, which is always cool. It means we're reaching people in the way that we want to reach them. So very exciting there. Group SGR has been a real pleasure to work with. C. Gray, the main designer in Group SGR, he's done a lot. Group SGR has done a lot. It's not like they've got one product and that's it. Now, Picaresque Roman was their first work that they ever did, but since then they've branched out. They've released 2 commercial tabletop RPGs just in the past year. They released 2 commercial RPGs in the past probably 14 months. And then they have there's of course there's Picaresque Roman, and then there's 2 supplements for Picaresque Roman. They've got Convictor Drive, which is this really interesting TRPG that's a bit more combat heavy and more traditional combat focused than Picaresque Roman. It's about sort of emotionally damaged superheroes, which is very cool. They've got this other, actually, no, I take it back. They have 3 commercial TRPGs. Because what is it? Never Late Nighters is you're playing sort of the people behind the scenes feeding information to superheroes. So you don't play as the actual superheroes fighting crime there on the street level in the trenches, duking it out with baddies. You're the folks who are like, you're the Barbara Gordon who's like sitting in a tower feeding information to the superheroes who are doing all of the work. Super cool game. Their approach to the genre is just very weird, and I mean that I mean weird in the best way possible. They just do stuff that you're like, well, A, no one else is doing that, and B, like who would, other than Group SGR, would think of doing that, which is awesome. They've recently gotten into murder mysteries, which have certainly a lot of elements with in common with tabletop RPGs, but they implement a little bit more of the live action role play stuff. Not necessarily combat oriented, so very theater of the mind kinds of experiences, which is cool. They've had a lot of success. They've got a second murder mystery game coming out this year. They released their first one back in 2019 or so. I think that timeline's right, and it was a huge success. I'm assuming that's why they're coming back for a second one. Both of them are sort of like period pieces, so they're not modern, which is very cool. They're just fun, that they just know how to A, create a good game, and B, create a game that you're not going to get elsewhere. So really excited to continue to work with them. They've been a breeze to work with. Lots of ideas, open to feedback, know their vision though, and definitely know what is their vision and what isn't their vision. So easy to work with, fun to work with. Yeah, I hope to continue to work with them in the future because they got a lot of stuff that I'm interested in. Fry Guy Fern says, Facebook keeps showing it to me. It knows. It does know, Fry. It knows that you have backed previous Linewing projects. Facebook is always watching. Okay, so that's Picaresque Roman. We are actually less than 3 weeks out. We're 20 days out. 3 weeks from yesterday. Because the 24th is a Tuesday. We'll be launching at noon, like all of our projects. It's 12 p.m. ET. Let's talk about some more updates. Okay, Wild Hunt Festival. So Wild Hunt Festival's fulfillment is about 95% complete. We are still waiting on confirmation from our UK depot that the pallets arrived. Fun Again cannot get confirmation yet from the depot who's handling the UK distribution. They just can't get that confirmation yet. I've been talking with them since Friday about trying to get confirmation from that depot. We think the pallets arrived, but they just haven't been super quick to respond. The UK certainly is the last to fulfill, which I mentioned in an update, and we kind of saw coming. Brexit kind of fucked everything up in terms of getting product to that region in an effective and efficient, timely manner. And so, sorry, UK, there's nothing I can do. We're trying our best here. But at this point, these things are out of our control. I suspect fulfillment for the UK will either begin at the end of this week or start next week. That's my hope. Every other place, though, has been fulfilled. Of course, if you're in one of those other regions and you still don't have your game, worry not, because you're still within the window of normality of when you should and shouldn't be receiving your games. Now, If like 2 more weeks goes by and you don't have anything, absolutely reach out to me. Of course, you're always welcome to reach out to me, especially through Discord with any questions you have, just where your package is or what's going on with your order. I will do my best and do what I can on my end to troubleshoot and to try to get to the bottom of the situation. Of course, if I can't solve it myself, that's when I'll reach out to Fun again, and they're pretty communicative, and we'll get it straightened out for you. So don't hesitate to reach out to me, drop me a DM. You can certainly ask questions like on the campaign page of whatever project that we got going on, or you can even send a message through Kickstarter. But I got to be honest, we just don't get those messages as quickly as we do when you ask about it in Discord or when you drop me a DM in Discord. So usually it takes me hours, if not a day, to get around to the Kickstarter responses. That's if I check Kickstarter and that message has already come to me, because I'm not checking Kickstarter multiple times a day, and Kickstarter does not alert you when you get a message. It just doesn't, which is so weird. I don't know like what system does that, but yeah. So unless you're manually checking your inbox in Kickstarter, you're never going to know if someone sent you a message. I only check that inbox a couple times a day. So if you happen to send a message after I've checked that inbox for the day, then I'm not getting to it till the next day. However, you drop me a DM in Discord, I usually get to you within minutes. So don't hesitate to reach out there. So we're like 95% finished with fulfillment there, which takes us to what we're looking toward next with Wild Hunt Festival. We still have DLC 2 coming. That's the summer-themed, what's called Pumu Rhapsody DLC. This will feature a summer-themed boss battle along with a new character, which is a playable Lemugia character. If you've played the game, then you know that Lemugia is one of the boss characters in the game. We ran a fan contest last August where we asked people to submit whatever kind of work they wanted to the team. It could be a story, it could be a piece of art, it could be a character that you make up, what have you. Submit it to us. We're gonna kind of whittle it down. We'll have people vote on it, and we'll crown someone the fan contest winner, and then we will work their art or their design or whatever it is into the actual product proper at some point. So someone won that contest, and they won by putting together this really elaborate playable Lemugia character. They were really kind of taken with Lemugia and wanted to turn that boss character into a playable hero in the game. They did that. It was awesome. We talked with Liner Note and said, all right, how do we make this work with the actual mechanics? Because not everything they created would actually work with the design philosophy of the game. And Liner Note churned out a really, really awesome character. Lemugia, a playable Lemugia, comes with her own mechanic. It's going to be really cool. We're hoping to get that DLC to everyone soon. I can't say more than that, but we're hoping to get it to folks soon. Certainly, we're shooting for within the month of August. Next, we also announced a Wild Hunt Festival team challenge. So I love events. I love competitive events. I love board game, card game leagues. This, however, meaning Wild Hunt Festival, is a cooperative game. And I said, you know what? I want to take this cooperative game and I want to add a competitive spin to it. So I came up with this idea of creating sort of a guild versus guild virtual league where people would get assigned. They would sign up for this event. They would get assigned to a guild, and they would, over the course of however many weeks or whatever, work with other players within that guild to fight various battles in Wild Hunt Festival, earn points for themselves and their team, and then at the end of the season, at the end of the league's season, each guild would be rated in terms of the amount of points that they earned, and then one guild would be crowned the champion, and then there would be some other stuff that I'll talk about here in a second, and then there would be prizes for everyone who participated, prizes for the players who scored the highest, prizes for the guilds who came out on top for the season, et cetera, et cetera. we now have our rule set. We now have our prize pool. We are pretty much ready to go. I'm going to be making a post with all of the details about this this league either tomorrow or Friday. I was waiting on finalizing a few things. I wanted to post this update last week around this time, and I just didn't get around to it. I was still trying to finalize too many things, along with the announcement of Picaresque. It was just a little crazy. We've got everything sorted out, though. I think this league is going to be really cool. It is admittedly a different type of approach of taking a cooperative game and turning it competitive, but I think it's really going to work how we've got things laid out. Better yet, we've got some really cool prizes for people. Some really cool prizes. I'm going to pull up some stuff here. Let's see. Those aren't our prizes. Do this the old-fashioned way. Sorry, nothing makes for terrible audio like dead air, and I just gave you some dead air there. I apologize. But I want to pull up. All right. So, everyone who participates in the league is going to get a prize. It is going to be a new Linewing collector's card. Well, I should say, it'll likely be a new Linewing collector's card. I actually am still kind of up in the air if I'm going to offer a brand new Linewing collector's card, or if all participants will get the collector's card that they did not get in the game, in the Wild Hunt Festival box. So if you've gotten your copy of the game, if you've opened it up, you've probably seen this one random card just floating around in there, and you're probably like, what the hell is this? That is the Linewing collector's card. So the Linewing collector's card series is our cards that'll come in some of our games, at least in Wild Hunt Festival. And for Wild Hunt Festival, there are a couple variations of this card, and the cards are placed in each box randomly. So you never know what kind of collector's card you're going to get. I've seen some people have got 001, other people have got 002. So the idea here is the participation prize for this is either going to be the other collector's card you didn't get, or a brand new collector's card that focuses on the actual league itself, which, by the way, we finally have a league name, and it is the Eastern Croatia Tri-Guild Challenge. That's the participation prize. The season winners, so the guild that wins the season, that has the most points, they will receive a tapestry map of Eastern Croatia, so a cloth map of the game's setting, Eastern Croatia. And then the final encounter winners, they're going to get a little special prize, but you're probably thinking, what the hell is a final encounter winner? So, let me tell you, throughout the season, people are going to work in duos, not teams of 4 and not solo, but working with one other person to take on bosses. Each encounter, those 2 individuals who make up the duo will be earning points for their guild, yes, but they'll also be earning points for themselves. At the end of the season, regardless of who won, regardless of which guild won, each guild will take the top 4 points earners from their guild, and those top 4 points earners will then play one last final encounter. Now, each guild will have 4 representatives representing that guild in the final encounter challenge. The final encounter challenge is meant to kick your ass and really isn't meant to even be won. But the players that are chosen to go to that final encounter for their guild will be those who earn the most points in the game. The team who either defeats the final encounter boss or who makes it the furthest will receive a special prize. And that is going to be an acrylic standee set featuring the the 4 party members that the winning team of that final encounter used. So, those are our prizes for that league. I think the prizes are cool. I think the league is very unique. It's not going to be a straightforward kind of 2 people team up and just take down one of the bosses in the game. There's going to be special objectives each week, each encounter. There's going to be optional modifiers, sort of secondary objectives that you and your duo's partner can take on to try to earn additional points. But there's a risk reward there. Because you might not win the encounter then if you take on those secondary objectives, because they do make the encounter that much harder. So it's kind of like you're weighing your options of, all right, do we go for more points knowing that the risk is greater that we might lose, or do we take the safer route, make the boss encounter easier, but we don't maybe earn as much points as the next team who is going to take the optional modifiers, secondary objectives, and get those points that we would not get because we're playing it safe. So a lot of decision points to be made here. We're really excited about this. Yet again, Sin Theory and Real Beans, our 2 community leads, and I have really, I think, thought this thing through. This one was more complicated than our first Gun and Gun virtual event, Operation Bulletstorm. A lot more went into this game, and a lot more has to go into this type of game because we're taking a game and making it competitive when it's not a competitive game. So inherently, there was more to do on the back end of things to set this up, but I think we've really got a cool thing going here. So I'm hoping to post about that tomorrow or Friday. Any other thoughts on Wild Hunt Festival? I think that is it for all of the Wild Hunt Festival updates. Hopefully everyone's enjoying the game. A lot of people, and dare I say most people, already have their games. Hopefully you've already played. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Drop a message, drop a comment, drop a whatever in the Wild Hunt Festival channel in our Discord server. Let me know what your team composition is, your favorite team composition. I love seeing how people play the game, who they choose to be in their party. That kind of thing fascinates me. I should probably collect data on that just so that I know who the favorites of the community are. I know I certainly have my favorites. Other people seem to as well. Laniston in the chat said, Wild Hunt Festival is exactly the game I was hoping it would be. Very happy. Thanks, Laniston. I'm glad that it has met your expectations and it is what you were hoping it would be. As I mentioned before, I love this game. I love it. I love it. I love it. A lot of love went into making this game. Obviously, a lot of time, dedication, energy, and resources was put into designing the game on liner notes side of things, especially with Ramo. As kind of the lead designer there, he has just knocked it out of the park. He's so consistent and so good at what he does. He's really made a game that is accessible for new players. Wild Hunt Festival, I think, I'm biased, of course, but I'm trying to be as objective as possible. I think Wild Hunt Festival is one of the best entry points for someone who's never played a board game. And that was by design. You know, this is meant to mimic that of a JRPG, or at least a JRPG combat, or kind of an MMORPG type combat system, but mostly a turn-based JRPG combat system. And for those who mostly just play video games in that area of JRPGs, this is such an easy transition. You know, you don't have to pour over. It's not like Testament where you got to pour over 30 pages of rules just to be able to get in there. And then you're really only going to know how to play the game on your third time once you fucked up a bunch and you realize oh, okay, so that's how that works. I wish I would have known that 3 hours ago. This is a game that's got 4 pages in its rule book, and you're ready to go. You're jumping right off, and you're getting in there, and you're playing, and you're not that confused. Sure, there will always be oh, this is a weird situation. How does this damage resolve? Fortunately, we've got a living document, a living Q&A or FAQ, if you will, of all of our player submitted questions. And we've organized it into, I think, what's a really readable, easy to understand, and quick to navigate page, which you can access if you flip to the back of your Wild Hunt Festival manual. Take a look, hold your camera up to that QR code in the bottom right corner. It'll take you to the page with all of those player submitted questions, or you can just go to linewingpublishing.com, and we've got a whole section dedicated, a whole section at the top of our navigation link bar just for FAQs for all of our games. Right now, we only have the one up for Wild Hunt Festival, but we will be updating that with our other games as well. So yeah, it's a very straightforward, very easy to understand game, and yet it has depth for people who have played many board games, who have spent thousands of hours in this hobby. There's still plenty of meat on the bone for veteran players. So it is that game that does what many games seek but often fail, and that is grab the casual, grab the hardcore player, and you give them something that each of them can enjoy. I like that. Rogue just got home. What did I miss so far? Rogue, so we actually went in reverse order. We're doing the project updates first, and then we're going to go into the Q&A. So, no, we have not talked about Embryo Machine just yet. So, hang on for that. All right. Okay, that's it for Wild Hunt Festival. What's next? Let's go into some Gun and Gun. You know that, as I mentioned, the final copies of the game are now wrapping up in the production process. They will be put onto pallets and then put onto the container, the freight ship, on August 20th. So we got that word from the printer last week? Yeah, I think last week. So they're going to be put on the boat on August 20th. When that boat leaves port, I'm not sure. Like I've mentioned, and like you probably have already heard so far, ports in China are still slow. They are not as slow as they were, which is great. Though they're actually worse than they were just like a couple months ago. So we've gone through this weird roller coaster ride with China ports where, you know, December of last year, ports were completely congested as things were opening back up. Things got a little bit better as 2021 got going. Things were doing pretty all right actually by May, maybe April, and then June hit, and we took a bit of a dive again, and congestion started to build back up. Not a lot of reasons for why on that one. The first time ports got congested, it made a lot of sense. This time, there doesn't seem to be as obvious a reason as to why that's happening, but it is happening. But it's nowhere near where it was in December. So, you know, that's good because, you know, our games essentially sat in port for almost 2 months with Wild Hunt Festival. That's how bad the port situation went. It was just unprecedentedly crazy. We don't anticipate that, but you know, they might get it put on the container ship on the 20th, but then they don't leave port until the first week of September. That seems extremely plausible, or even the second week of September. That also seems plausible. So we're hoping that the fulfillment process starts in early October for Gun and Gun. We're hoping that fulfillment will be pretty much done by the end of October. It could be done long before that. Fulfillment could start in September. I'm not making any promises though, because in this pandemic, it's impossible to make promises. Even the most well-informed folks aren't getting it right now. And that's because this thing is changing day by day. Still, you know, I mean, that's been happening for a long time, since last year, but the situation is still developing day by day. So I can't make any promises, but I think the end of having fulfillment finished by the end of October seems like a pretty safe projection, which is good. So that being said, I got in my own copies of the final production of the game, which is cool. You know, I mean, expected, and also cool that, you know, I got the final thing. We've got some surprises for you in the game, a couple surprises that people definitely won't see coming. Maybe one surprise they will, but others they definitely won't. But I did want to show off. I showed off a picture of this in the chat in Discord a couple days ago, but I did want to show off what it's like to go from like the beginning of a production sample to the final product, because I've got something here. All right. Let's try not to hit this mic. Okay. So here we go. Here are the Gun and Gun storage boxes that you could get if you added them onto your order. This bottom box, this was our first production sample. This is the final product. It's really cool in this line of work because you don't always get this in every line of work where you can watch something evolve and you can see it physically happen. It's not some vague or nebulous thing that is happening abstractly. This is actually happening before your very eyes in physical form. So here was our first production box. It's horrible. I mean, it just is. It's gloss finish. But like, no one should ever gloss finish anything. It's personal preference, of course, but no, it's not. No one should ever gloss anything, and that includes storage boxes. So not only is it gloss, it's comically deep. Like, why is this box so deep? That's like 6 inches. Why is that a thing? And you can really see it once you kind of get in there, right? It's so deep that there's like all of this room for the cards to move around in. You know, they're shifting this way and that. You don't want to take this anywhere because you're gonna fuck up your cards, right? It also is just kind of like, it's just kind of plain, you know. It's pretty ugly. It was our first production sample, right? So that came back. Now some of these things were design decisions that we made, like, you know, just the more straightforward approach where it's just kind of black, you got some logos here and bada boom, that's it. Other things, you know, were not chosen for us, like the depth of this. This is not the depth that we provided, but it is the depth we got. So there you go. There's that. Here was round 2. Round 2 already looking better. Matte finish, nice and satiny, no gloss. Little trimmer, right? Trimmer means cards. You know, I can fit my fingers there just barely. That's good, you know, because these aren't sleeved. So obviously sleeved cards is going to give a little bit more width to this. This is good, right? The problem is it's too short. But you begin to see, all right, we added a little something here, right? Got a little phrase there. We decided that just the straight up black was kind of boring. So that's that. Final product. Long. Slightly deeper, though, just by a couple millimeters, because I asked for a couple millimeters, because this was a little too tight. Because I did want folks to be able to store their gun cards along the back if they wanted to, so I want a little bit of room there, especially if folks were going to do like top loaders. Now I can't promise that all cards in top loaders are going to fit in the space between the cards and the back of the box. That was not the intention. I just wanted more space for those cards if people were going to store them there, because that's what I do. And I figured even for those folks who are not going to store them there, a couple millimeters, they're probably not even going to recognize. They're not even going to know it's there. So slightly deeper. There's the inside. There's the side. We also threw some logos down here. Matte finish. Slicker finish. More vibrant colors. Deeper colors when you look at the two. You can tell this is a production sample and this is the real deal, just by the coloration. Coloration's kind of faded, washed out here. High whites, not a good look. Here, lots of purples, lots of deep hues. You've also, because this is longer, you've got more movement in the effects, which I think really add to how this image is presented, which was intentionally left align or offset. So we wanted that nice bit of space right here. We had an option to just move this over. We were like, nah, that's boring. I thought this was more catching to the eye. So I love kind of all the space that you got there with your main illustration there. So it's cool to go from, you know, this awful, awful monstrosity of a box to something that's pretty damn presentable. So the quality of the cards, now this isn't something that you all would know because you never held the cards, but we wanted 310 GSM for the cards. Our first 2 production samples were like 2 something. And we said, yo, that's too flimsy. So we upped it. The cards are now thicker. They feel thicker, which means they move on a mat better. They look nicer, less prone to bending. Another difference. So, do I have all of the boxes? I do. All right. 1 second. It's good audio, right? Good audio. Okay. So, first production box. Box actually looks pretty decent, right? Other than the fact that I put the lid on upside down. Looks pretty decent. But the colors are fairly washed out. Now, this box art is meant to be a little washed out because that is the design. Look at the thickness, all right? Fairly thin. The problem with this, the box was too thin because when you tried to put all of the components in it, I'm not kidding. This is not an exaggeration. The box was like this. It was ridiculous. So, production sample 2, the one that you all have most recently seen, chunky, right? We went from this to this. So the box size, the thickness changed quite a bit. We realized that while I loved how chunky this was going to kill us on shipping. So now I have some extra stuff packed in here that shouldn't be in here, but final product box right here. So it's thinner, but not as thin as the original production box. So we mostly accomplished this by changing the build quality, the material of the play sheets. So the play sheets were originally like this super, super thick paper. They were needlessly thick. Now, they looked nice, but they were needlessly, like, enormous. So, very thick. We revised the paper, which also gave us greater coloration because of the material. We still got that matte, sleek satin finish, but the black is much deeper here. And that's because we changed the material that is being printed on. So, not only, here's the really thick one, here's the really thin one. Look at those 2 babies. So not only is it thinner, but it looks better, which saved us on box space, which saved us on shipping space, which means it's not going to cost me $45,000 to ship all of these to backers, and instead it's only going to cost me $30,000 to ship all to backers. It's amazing what a little change like that would do. And what's even better is not only was the change cost effective, it's a better product. It looks better, and it's still going to hold up super well. And that was a big thing that I wanted for the play sheets. I wanted them to hold up well. A lot of people aren't going to use these, and I recognize that. It's probably going to be the more casual player who likes this kind of thing, and the player who did not grab a play mat or something. So a lot of people are going to take these. I mean, I know how this goes. They're going to take these, they're going to toss these things. They're never going to go back in that box. But I still wanted them to be of good quality and to look damn good for the folks, the small margin of folks who are going to use them. Looking at the chat here. Let's see here. I remember you didn't answer the fundamental question. Is the final printing still toddler proof like you initially teased? Yes. So not only are the components toddler proof, but the boxes as well, because this box did not get crushed like this one did, which I'm looking for where this one got crushed. Maybe I got crushed on the lid. So now my toddler hasn't stepped on this with their full weight, but it did fall off my kitchen table, and it fell off my kitchen table. No damage. So I'm really happy with the final product here. You know, in printing, no matter how many times you do this, what you get in the final product, no matter how much you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's, no matter how meticulous you've been in your communication and how meticulous you've been with your conveying of dimensions and sizes, you still never know what you're going to get. You just don't. So when you get those, this is for everyone across the board, every publisher, every designer, when you get your final print copies, you're always like crossing your fingers like, fuck, I hope this turned out the way I wanted it to. So it's always a bit of a like, I'm going to hold my breath here and I hope this is going to turn out all right. Gun and Gun turned out very, very, very all right. I'm so happy with this. It's like Wild Hunt Festival, minus the plastic cards. But we didn't get samples of the plastic cards, right? So we weren't allowed to. The production process and production demoing and sampling is really, really important. It shows you what your printer is capable of. It shows you what they're not capable of. It shows you what you want and what you don't want. It was important that we went through 2 versions of this game before we settled on what I'm 100% happy with. Not 99% happy with, I'm 100% happy with the final product of this game. It's something that I'm really excited that you all are going to see. Just, 2 months time, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on where you are. I always think, like when we're printing Linewing games, is this something that I would be proud of, or is this something that I would cringe, like if I gave this to a friend to open and look at, if I gave this to my mother to open and look at, if I put this on my display shelf for other people to grab and inspect when they come over. If I can say, yeah, I'm proud of that and I want to give this to people to look at, I know that we've done our job. If there's even like a small part where I'm like, oh, I hope they don't see that part, I feel like, well, fuck, all right. Lesson learned. That doesn't feel good. That's like the plastic boards in Wild Hunt Festival. That doesn't feel good. That's a disappointment. That to me, that's a failure on our part. That doesn't make the whole process a failure, the whole project a failure, because everything about Wild Hunt Festival has turned out the way we wanted it to, minus those boards. But it's disappointing. We don't have anything like the plastic board situation here. So I'm really happy with this. So, Gun and Gun, we've got a second event coming up. Now we've got to plan this accordingly because we've got an embryo machine fan contest that we're about to run. We've got a DLC pack coming in for Wild Hunt Festival. We've got a Wild Hunt Festival event league popping off. We've got our Kickstarter going off. All of this is kind of set to go off in August. So, and with the timeline being what it is, we're looking at running the next Gun and Gun event in September. We do have a name for the second Gun and Gun event, which even my community leads are learning about the name for the first time right now. It's Operation Firestrike. So Firestrike will go down not at the beginning of September, but it will go down in September. It won't go down at the end of September because I don't want it getting in the way of other things, but it will be happening in September. So probably, if I had to guess, if I had to commit to an answer right now, which I'm not committing to any date at this very moment, but if I had to right now, I would say 5 weeks from this coming weekend is when you can expect the second Gun and Gun event to go off. maybe 4 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks. How about that? That gives me some wiggle room. I can get out of that one if I need to. So yeah, Operation Firestrike. Speaking of gun and gun tournaments, I mentioned this in the Discord, but I don't know if I mentioned it. I don't know if I've even had a chance to mention it on stream. I just ordered the t-shirts, the Operation Bulletstorm t-shirts last week. I just ordered the holographic stickers this week. So the prizes will be coming in probably in the next 1 to 2 weeks, which means I'll be sending those prizes out in August. Yet again, August is like crazy busy month. Oh, by the way, did I mention that we sold our house? So I'm moving. My wife and my 2 kids, my dog and I are moving out of our house, and we also bought a house. So we're doing that all in August as well. We actually have to move out of this house two days after the Picaresque Roman Kickstarter launches. Fuck. So, yes, let's see here. Let me check the chat here. Bradley keeping secrets. That's Sin Theory, one of our community leads. Sorry, Sin. Played that one close to the chest. I dibs the power of selecting the G&G event in winter. Stickers, the August of Linewing. Yeah, the August of Linewing, all right. Yeah, okay. So that's Gun and Gun. So get prepared for Firestrike. Actually, that's not Gun and Gun. We're going to be putting up the Overheat cards within the next 2 weeks. That could happen sooner, but I'm giving myself 2 weeks because, August. Says his 3 a.m. days are over, proceeds to fill up all of August with work. Yeah, this is, August will absolutely be probably my busiest month since the formation of the company. So yeah, Af, come on, didn't you know that we're putting Overheat on TTS? I mean, how else are we gonna play that? How else are we gonna play Firestrike? Right? If it's popping off in September, it's going on TTS. So Rogue says, please don't die. Sin and Beans need their dad. I'm a dad. I mean, yeah. It's true. I'm a dad. I can be anyone's dad. My wife hates my dad jokes. I'm not kidding. It's like you become a dad, and it's just like we must be genetically predisposed to make dad jokes like the moment we become fathers. Because I was never like a very jokey person since having our kids. No, I got dad jokes for days. Beans has dubbed Bradley our dad already. That actually is true. Beans has been calling me dad for a number of months now. It's both weird and endearing. Hashtag overwork. Hashtag Operation Overwork. How's that? Tap into the dad for us. Yep. I knew, but always thought it was weird doing so since after that people could just play the game for free on TTS. Yeah, they can, but let's be honest. Playing games on Tabletop Simulator sucks. So for the longest time, I was really hesitant about putting stuff on TTS because I'm like, hey, if people can just play this game for free, they're just going to do that. They're not going to buy the real game. And at the end of the day, I'm running a company and I need the company to be viable to keep doing this. And then it dawned on me like one day, like, that's not true. If people are like, Tabletop Simulator sucks. Like, it's awesome for what it is. Don't get me wrong. It's a great program. I'm so glad that Berserk Games put it together. I'm so glad it exists. It's wonderful for playtesting. It's wonderful in this pandemic environment. It's wonderful if you're trying to put together an event like this and people don't have their games yet, or even if they did, it would just be easier to run it virtually. It absolutely serves a purpose. And let's be honest, playing games on Tabletop Simulator sucks. It is not peak fun. When playing something on TTS. It'll always be more fun to play with the actual game in your hand. And something like Gun and Gun, it's a game you want to hold. Whether it's the satiny box or the sweet play sheets, or the badass gun cards, or the sleeves, which I'm going to show off here in a second. TT Link Gress says TTS is life, TTS is love. No, it totally is. It has been amazing, especially in the pandemic. I mean, I would love to see the concurrent player data or just the aggregate total player data for TTS pre-pandemic, pandemic, because I'd imagine that player base just skyrocketed. So I am simply saying TTS sucks because when compared to the real thing, nothing beats the real thing, in my opinion. Speaking of the real thing, we got sleeves. Let's see here. The only thing TTS has over IRL gaming is when it's a points game and you need scripts to calculate. Yeah, no, that actually is true. Oh, Laniston, this is a dad joke. Laniston, I don't know if you're a dad or whatever, but that's a dad joke. I'll read it for everyone. Why is everyone in Moscow always speeding? Because they're all Russian. So stupid. Oh, God. Well played. Hey, before we get out of gun and gun mode. Oh my God, I just got shit just falling all over here. This is not good. Before we get out of gun and gun mode. Oh, Lanniston, you are dead. All right. Yep, then. That's a legit joke right there, then. I got a lot of dead air tonight on this stream, so I apologize, but I'm just having to, like, grab stuff. Okay. A petition to make a hashtag dad jokes channel. Petition granted. I will make that tonight. I'm not kidding. I'm actually going to make that as soon as the stream ends. All right. So, linked grass, you don't get it. I'm sorry. It's because I don't know if you're dad or not, but I feel like if you're dad, you absolutely understand dad jokes immediately. All right. So, I haven't shown the sleeves. No one has seen the sleeves. So, sleeves, little branding at the top. So I said before that the sleeves were too small, and we had an issue that was actually holding up the whole process, and in some ways because the damn sleeves were too small. Sleeve fit, right there. Back, right there. So if you grab some sleeves, and let me tell you, by the count that I'm reading in the Pledge Manager, a lot of you bought the sleeves. A lot of you. I think I don't even remember what our MOQ was on the sleeves, but I was like, oh yeah, like if we get this MOQ, then like we'll print the sleeves, and then we like crushed that MOQ like by like twice as much in the first day, and then since then we're like I'm not kidding, like 2,000% over our MOQ. So like a ton of people bought sleeves. The sleeves are spicy. Yes, the sleeves are spicy. They fit perfectly. So the last sleeves, I might actually have them here. Not that anyone cares, because like all that matters is like you're gonna get sleeves that actually work and fit. But let me see if I've got the old sleeves here, because it's always cool to just see the process. But I don't think I do. Not offhand, and I'm not going to like go digging through all my games here on stream. But before, the sleeves were both too short and too narrow. So like the cards really didn't fit super well in them. Actually, the sleeves might be in here. They are. All right. So let me show these babies off. Sin Theory. I got 2 sets. Yeah. Okay. So Sin, I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people got 2 sets. I think that would explain why there's so many sleeve orders. All right. So. Too snug a fit. So yeah, I wanted a little bit of space. Not too much space, but a little bit. All right. So that's Gun and Gun. Rogue says, ditto, I love the branding on the sleeves. Yeah, you know, I was like, it's boring just printing clear sleeves. Let's do something here. Let's get that Gun and Gun name out there, because who knows? People might use these sleeves for something else. I mean, kind of oddly sized sleeves, but I'm sure there's a game out there that utilizes the same sleeve size. Okay. That's that. Let's talk about embryo machines. So next Wednesday on the stream, I am going to reveal the embryo fan contest. You already know that it's a scenario-based fan contest, but you don't know the details of what that really means. So you can look forward to that next Wednesday. So I'll reveal it on stream, and then I'll post the update either that same night or the following day. Embryo Machine, the reason why we have not gotten Fornice on Tabletop Simulator is because I wanted to put Fornice up with Fornice's deck along with the second Battlefield board, and my main Tabletop Simulator implementer is having some issues with getting the second Battlefield board to work as intended. You'd think that it'd be pretty easy just using snap points, but it has proven to not actually be as simple as you would think it is. So we are actually hoping to have that on Tabletop Simulator last Thursday, one or the other, I don't know. And it just didn't happen. We haven't given up. We're going to figure this out, but it's taking a little bit longer, and especially because my main implementer has like a day job and works various other implementations for board games on Tabletop Simulator. So it's taken more time. It is coming. If we still can't get the boards to work by the end of the next week, I'm just going to throw up Fornice by itself. That way we've at least got another thing on there. We just won't have the second Battlefield, which is a bummer because we need that second Battlefield. I want people to be able to play 2v2. But I'm not going to wait around forever for that. So if it's not done by the end of next week, Fornice is at least going up. Yeah, so in the chat, I see it. You'd get scratching on the top with the previous ones. Yeah, you're talking about the smaller gun and gun sleeves. Yeah, because what I found that when I actually moved them around and I played with them, or you know, I shuffled them or used them in whatever way in my hands, the cards would eventually kind of creep up over the top of that sleeve lip, and that wasn't going to fly. So we needed a little bit of we needed that margin of airspace to be there for cards to be able to move around slightly in the sleeve. What a mess is now your desk, Bradley. Yeah, I know. Trust me, when you're only seeing what's on camera, you're not seeing all this stuff over here. I do not like this. It's making me feel very uncomfortable. I do not like messes. I don't like clutter. Especially clutter that has no purpose or sense of organization to it. You can have clutter that's organized, all right, that's one thing, but clutter that's just living by the laws of chaos, not for me. Fan contest hype, yeah. I hope people turn out for this. You know, the crowd for Embryo is different than the crowd for other Linewing games. Certainly there are some of you who are really into Embryo Machine, and you've used the channel here in Discord to talk about it. You've talked about it on stream. You've played it on Tabletop Simulator. By and large, though, that Kickstarter page is super quiet. So clearly, we tapped into a different type of market with that game, which makes sense because it is a war game. And I think the wargaming crowd is a different type of individual. At least they're a different type of engager. And so there just is not a lot of engagement on that Kickstarter page. Whereas if you look at Gun and Gun, but especially like Wild Hunt Festival, a lot of engagement on that page, right? So Embryo Machine definitely attracts a different type of player, which is cool. I love that kind of thing. I think a company that is not looking to expand its audience is a company that will forever stay the same size it is at currently. So I love that we've got like a different type of backer on Embryo Machine. But as someone who loves like engaging with people in Discord or on chat or on a campaign page or on social, it hurts my heart. I'm like, come on, folks, where's the hype? Where's the hype? I mean, clearly there's hype. Uh, we did really, we did well. We blew our goal out of the water. But it's like y'all just like backed and then just left. We're like, we'll get that game someday. I'm on to the next thing. I don't know what happened there, but yeah. If it wasn't for, so Rogue says, if it wasn't for EM, I would have never explored the Linewing catalog. Yeah, that is what I'm talking about. Embryo is such a different type of game that it brought in a different type of person, and it brought in the type of person who probably wouldn't have known about us or checked out our stuff otherwise. And so Rogue, you're kind of like the shining example of what I'm talking about here, that someone who didn't know about us, you liked Embryo, you were like, hey, what does this company have? What else do they have? You found our other stuff, and then presumably, hopefully, you like the other stuff we had. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you should be doing as a company, looking for ways to grow. That's the point. Af in the chat says, all I want is a face-to-face handshake with Bradley. Yes, I want a face-to-face handshake with all of you. So I really want to, if not a handshake, because, some people are, handshakes aren't their thing, especially after COVID. That's cool. I'll do an elbow bump, a foot tap, a fist bump. I'll do any of that, or I'll not do anything. We can just say hey and kind of stand in the same area or vicinity as one another. That's good enough for me. I just want to see like you all in person and meet you, and that is really exciting for me. I feel very connected to all of you. So it's weird to feel that tethered to other people, having never seen them. And certainly, like, I do see some of you, like when you like stuff on, on Facebook or something, like I notice the name and then I see you. It's not the same though as like seeing someone, right? So I'm looking forward to the day when I can meet all of you. Where is Lionwing based from? Cincinnati, Ohio. So we're here in the U.S. I don't know where you're at, Linked Crest, but yeah, we're here in the U.S. in southwestern Ohio. I'm coming to you straight from my basement in Cincinnati. A hip bump, a hip bump's fine. It kind of like brings you in pretty close to someone. You can stay pretty far away with the elbow, the fist, or the foot, but the hip bump, you really gotta like get in there. I don't know. Some people might be a little leery about that right now. Yeah, my face got revealed to you a couple times, Bradley, with all the like/retweet. Yes, I see your name come up on Facebook, especially often. I'm like, hey, that's Af. Not by the name Af. In the stale valley of Cincinnati, #NoBreeze. It's so true. It's so true. It is a stagnant valley where pollen likes to settle. So if you live in or around Cincinnati, you know how terrible allergens are in this city. Pretty much everyone who lives in Cincinnati has some kind of environmental allergy that ails them throughout the year. You would think that we live here so long that we would just build up some sort of natural immunity or tolerance to it. That's how much there is of it. That's how much our geographical positioning sucks. A lot of conventions in that state. It's a good place to be. Yeah, it's not bad, not too bad. And if the conventions are in our state, we're pretty centrally located. I mean, certainly we're not like in the dead center of the US, right? But like in terms of conventions, other than West Coast stuff, like we can get to anything on the East Coast or down south, or just north of us, like northern Midwest, Great Lakes area, with a very short plane ride or a tolerable car ride. So I mean, we really are we're in a pretty accessible area of the country, which is cool. means more conventions for us when convention seasons are back and aren't going to kill us all. So, all right, so that's Embryo Machine. Hey, Made Knight Saga. So we are, we pushed back Made Knight Saga to modify, add to, tweak some things. We are now done with those modifications, add tos, and tweakings. It's all done now. The game is 100% ready to go. And that even includes the Kickstarter. So never before have I just sat on a finished Kickstarter. A finished game, a finished Kickstarter. Never before has that happened. But that's happening right now. So, Made Knight Saga, when can you expect it? So, with the modifications that we made, it absolutely has taken Made Knight to the next level. And you'll know why once we reveal what those additions and modifications are. You'll know immediately. And you will say, yep, you absolutely should have taken that time and used your time wisely. We have to fulfill Gun and Gun before Kickstarter will approve the Made Knight Saga campaign, because you can only have 3 outstanding Kickstarters running at any specific time. So as soon as Gun and Gun has been about 70-75% fulfilled, we can get that campaign approved. So going with the worst case scenario of like Gun and Gun doesn't get fulfilled until the endish of October, and that is a worst case scenario. We are looking at November for Made Knight Saga. Now, I don't like to launch campaigns in November. There are too many competing priorities, too many competing financial pools from other people. A lot of stuff happens at the end of the year for a lot of folks. A lot of things that require money, or a lot of things that people want to spend money on. A lot of gift buying, a lot of gatherings, events, holiday type things that are competing for people's, not only their money, but just competing for their time, competing for their headspace, competing for their thoughts, competing for their interests. And so it's never fun to have to launch something in November. However, the board game market is in such a good place right now that I think you could launch on Christmas Day. And if you've got the right product, you're going to fund within hours on Christmas Day. I mean, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but it is an exaggeration to prove a point that the old ways of thinking of Kickstarter are not as applicable as they once were. And so while November 5 years ago would have been seen as not a death sentence, but a significant hindrance to the success of a campaign, is no longer really the case. I mean, I just think about last year. I think Level 99 ran their campaign for Soccer Arms in November of last year and did quite well for themselves. So we're looking at November. But if we fulfill in late September, early October, then we're going to launch at the end of October, early November. So we probably won't get away from November, but it will be kind of like, are you going to launch at the beginning of November, or are you going to launch after Thanksgiving? So if we get into that territory, because I do want 3 to 4 weeks of marketing, of course, before the campaign goes live. If we get into that territory where it's like, we're looking toward the end of November, then we are going to push it until after Thanksgiving here in the States. So whatever that following Tuesday would be, probably. But if we can get in before then and we can wrap up our campaign before the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday, then that's what we're going to do. Hi, here in Montreal, there is virtual conventions, which are weird, but I guess not sure how to feel about it. So, I mean, every company is going to be different, and every company has their own views on virtual conventions, and every company utilizes virtual conventions in their own ways, and every company kind of knows what works for them and what's best for them. I got no interest in virtual conventions, not for us. It doesn't really work for me. I'm glad they exist. I'm glad they work for some companies, but I'm not very interested. So that's what we're looking like for Midnight Saga. So it's coming this year. We just got to figure out when it's happening. But damn, is it going to be worth the wait? I'm excited about that. That's it for project updates. So that just took an hour and a half, which means I'm going to forego tabletop gaming news tonight, and I'm just going to get into Q&As. But I also want to quickly give an update on something not related to games, but is related to Linewing. We are going to be opening up a Linewing merch store. In fact, I wouldn't say we're going to be opening up a store. I would say we're going to be opening up a storefront, utilizing another platform that makes sense for us, and that's TeePublic. So if you've used TeePublic before, you know that they are a custom apparel company, digital storefront for companies, independent designers, what have you, to produce merchandise in the form of apparel, shirts, hoodies, tanks, whatever, baby onesies. They have those as well. In addition to accessories, mugs, stickers, keychains, etc. And for Lionwing, this makes a lot of sense for us. So I shared several episodes ago that as much as I would love to be able to offer like Lionwing shirts just like, they just suck when it comes to cost. Like you spend a shit ton of money. You spend like $1,000 to get like 50 shirts. And the margin for profit is so small that unless you're printing and selling 500 shirts, most of the time it's not going to do anything for you. It's going to pull you away from doing other things that are actually important for your bottom line or for your business. It's going to get in the way of you being able to ship out things quickly because, let me prioritize this t-shirt instead of like this game, right? Like that gets dicey. And, you're making like, unless you're printing a shit ton of shirts, 500 to 1,000 shirts, anything under that, you're making like $2 a shirt. And like, it's great to have the branding out there and it's great to give folks like something to wear, but it's kind of like, is that juice worth the squeeze? And so I've always concluded that the juice is not worth the squeeze when it comes to merch, not when it comes to t-shirts. So then I started exploring TeePublic a little bit, because TeePublic allows you to offer merch to people who want it while putting up no upfront cost. With TeePublic, you supply the designs. TeePublic has various printers. They print the stuff on, whatever shirts you identify as, the shirts you want to offer and in what colors. And they take care of all that for you. And you make more per shirt going through them than you would on your own if you're printing less than 500 t-shirts, which we absolutely would be printing less than 500 t-shirts. So not only does this make sense for us, I mean, we're not, even though the you're making more, we would make more from TeePublic than we would selling our stuff on our own. It's not so much about like making money here. Is it just like, how do I not get bogged down by this and yet also be able to provide this? Because I do find value, and even if it's just like personal interest or value in merchandise, I think it's cool that there might be people out there who want to rep a Lionwing shirt or whatever. I want to rep a Lionwing shirt, right? So I want to be able to provide that. I want it to be cost effective for us, but I also want it to be not cost prohibitive for you or for the buyer, because to be able to make any money on a shirt, like if we printed 500 ourselves, to be able to make any money, we'd have to price that shirt at like $40. And like, who the fuck wants to buy a $40 shirt? Like, the answer to that question is no one. So if we go through TeePublic, you can grab a shirt for anywhere between like $15 and $26. And it gives us the option to provide people options for various types of designs. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have five designs, 5 shirt designs. I think that's right. Each one will come with a variety of material options, color options, logo options, print on the front and back, print on just the front, that kind of thing. So all of this is good for everyone. This is a win-win. Like, we get to offer it. We don't get bogged down by it. And we don't put out a ton of money, printing shirts that aren't going to sell super quickly, that we're just going to sit on and take up warehousing space and ultimately cost us money. And you all get cool shit and at a really affordable, low price with a bunch of options in terms of the type of apparel, the color of apparel, and, which shirt design you want. So I know there were some people in the past asking about this kind of thing, and yeah, now we're going to be offering it, and I think it's going to be really cool. I like the designs that we've got. I mean, it's not like crazy designs, but we've got some basic stuff, some cool stuff. One really, really, really cool design that we've been sitting on for coming up on 2 years. So we were excited to be able to finally have the ability to offer that design. So that'll officially be going up soon. Just keep an eye out for that. Okay. Now it's time to get into the LionWing Talks questions. Here is our Q&A section. I'll probably be going through these a little faster than I would if I had started with these. So I apologize. The first question comes from Rogue in Discord, and actually, I have already answered his question. Rogue's question is: are there updates for the gun and gun card sleeves? I know you had not received a production sample 2 updates ago. Any update there? Yes, Rogue. Go a little bit back in this video, you will find it. Next question from Swordman21. Which LionWing project do you think was the biggest risk and vice versa? Biggest risk. Well, I certainly would say the first project is always the biggest risk, especially when you're providing a niche product, and especially when you're a new company who has no idea what the fuck you're doing. That's always the biggest risk. When we launched Sinome Coliseum, as I've shared in the past, I had no idea what I was doing with Kickstarter. I had no idea what I was doing with marketing. I had no idea what I was doing with fulfillment, with printing, with production samples. I had no idea what I had no full or comprehensive understanding of all the work that really went into what it took to localize a tabletop game. So for all of those reasons, Sinome Coliseum was our biggest risk, because not only did we just not know what we were doing, and not only did we have to learn on the job, but we had no idea if people wanted this thing. We had no idea if people wanted a game company focused on localizing and publishing Japanese games. Sure, there was Japanime, and there's Big in Japan from AEG, and there had been Level 99 and other companies that had either localized or produced games that were in the vein of a Japanese game. What we were doing was different from all of those companies, at least with Sinome Coliseum. Like, you look at all those companies' catalogs, and then you compare it with Sinome Coliseum, and you're like, okay, yeah, no, they're kind of the same corner of the industry, but very different, right? So I had no market data. No market research, if anyone wanted this thing, if it was going to be financially viable. I didn't know how expensive shipping actually was in real life. I didn't know how expensive fulfillment really was in real life. I had no idea that you actually had to market games on Kickstarter and that people just didn't come to you. I just had no idea. So it was our biggest risk by far. Can you feature your table you use for board games, is a question from Rogue Knight. Not tonight, but yeah, once we move to our new house, I will make sure that I set it up and get it in the shot, because it is custom made, but it was actually custom made by my stepfather, who gave it to me as a Christmas gift 2 Christmases ago. So it's got sentimental value to it, and it's very functional, and it's not necessarily a table, it's a topper. So I use a more standard fold out table, and then the topper sits on top of it. But what he did with that topper and everything is very functional, very accessible, is of a good quality, and looks nice too. So I will show that off probably in October, because that's when we'll be settled in and everything will be kind of set up. Next question comes from Sai. If Kadokawa offered you one pick of their products you would be able to localize and distribute over Kickstarter, what would you choose? Yeah, I would choose one of these. I don't know if I could absolutely like nail down which one, so I'll just choose both. It's a cop out, I know. Sorry to punt on this one, but it would be Sword World 2.5 or Deadline Heroes, both tabletop role playing games. Sword World is the Japanese equivalent to D&D. It is one of the biggest tabletop role-playing games in Japan. Anything dealing with Cthulhu is always the top seller in the TRPG space in Japan. But outside of that, Sword World has been around. It's one of the longest running published TRPGs, and it's one of the most popular. And because it is published by Kadokawa, it's got a lot of money behind it, and it's got a lot of distribution behind it, and a lot of people played that game, and it's really good because Group S&E, the same folks who created the Embryo Machine tabletop RPG and who also helped supervise the Embryo Machine board game, are the creators, the designers of Sword World and Sword World 2 and 2.5. One of the best TRPG design studios in Japan. So you've got the pedigree of Kadokawa, the pedigree of Group S&E, with the production values you would expect from two companies of that caliber. Great game. Deadline Heroes is essentially My Hero Academia in TRPG form. It's a TRPG about superheroes, which is, if you know anything about Japan, they don't do a lot with superheroes, not traditional superheroes. Deadline Heroes is a traditional superhero game, just with an anime aesthetic. Amazing production, amazing writing, great systems, cool ass character classes, a lot of support with supplements. Just I can't explain how good Deadline Heroes is. So one of those two. I guess if I could have a third option, I would choose the Record of Lodos War TRPG, which was coincidentally enough also designed by Group S&E, and coincidentally enough was also published by Kadokawa. Next question from Gregorio. Do you think companies should sell products considering scalpers, such as only one copy per household? Would this cripple sales? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, Gregorio. I'm sorry. My brain isn't quite working right at this point, especially an hour and 42 minutes deep into this thing. Such as only one copy per household. No. I think that's shit. Like, to limit product, like, if a scalper wants to scalp shit, they're gonna figure out a way to scalp shit, right? And you can put order restrictions. Someone will still find a way to scalp that game. In the board game industry, you don't get a lot of scalping, just because board games tend to be not as rare. The people who play them tend to not want to like spend a bunch of money to get a rare game. Most people don't see the need to get a game, even if it is rare. Most people don't even think about like what is a rare board game. There are rare board games, by the way, that go for lots of money. But generally speaking, no one gives a shit about that in this industry by and large. So it's hard to be a scalper in this industry. Certainly scalpers in this industry do exist. I mean, go to the Wild Hunt Festival Board Game Geek page and you see someone trying to hawk a base copy of Wild Hunt Festival for $70. And I'm like, what? What? You can just, the game doesn't even come with any Kickstarter extras. You can just order the fucking game from our website. Like, what? I don't understand. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't see the need to do that kind of thing to circumvent scalpers just because it's not a big deal right now. That doesn't mean it won't be a big deal at some point. It seems like there is a whole culture surrounding the whole idea of scalping, and then like people who are willing to pay astronomical amounts of money for games just to say that they spent an astronomical amount of money on a game. Like those people exist in the world. I just don't know if they're super plentiful in this field. They'll exist in this field, and they do exist in this field, but like when you compare it to like the video game market, especially like the retro video game market, people aren't coming out in droves here like they are there. Let's see here. Sorry, I haven't been keeping up with the chat. Uh, I'm waiting for Linewing to go to convention so I can bring my Wild Hunt Festival secret card, have Bradley sign it, and then sell it on eBay for lots of money. You could do that, and no one will give a shit about my signature. Spoiler: no one cares about me. Heck yeah, hoodies coming. Hoodies incoming. Yeah, hoodies are indeed incoming because you and I are hoodie partners. No, they are not $60. Don't say August. I'll worry about your health regarding launching the storefront. Nope, it's happening in August. Very soon, too. I'm doing a test run of some things, and as soon as that test run's complete and everything checks out, then we'll be launching, which will probably be in the next week and a half. I mentioned the table because I was curious of seeing it in the Sinome video. Yeah, okay, so you saw if you watched our Sinome playthrough, then you saw the table. Well, some of it anyway. But I can certainly grab a picture of it at some point. I'll throw it in Discord. Actually, that's exactly what I'll do. I won't do it like tonight or whatever. It is packed away at this point because we are in packing mode. But I can definitely get you a picture of that table faster than I can get you something else like of a video of that table. Yes, he said Lodos. Yes, Rogue. We are kindred spirits. Okay. Let's see. Next question from Aiken. Aiken? I don't know. Correct me. This has nothing to do with Linewing, but I'm curious as to what you're currently listening to, some of your favorite bands / artists. If that's too personal, feel free to disregard. I don't think that's personal. I don't think anyone cares, but I don't think it's personal. I mean, you care, Aiken, so clearly I'm going to answer this question for you. I don't know if anyone else cares, though. Some of my favorite bands, artists. I don't know. I try to, I've got like a bunch of nostalgic bands and stuff that I listened to when I was younger, but I also try to keep up on modern stuff that's important to me. As someone who enjoys listening to music, but has always like played and written music as well. Something I do when I'm not playing games. Keeping up on like current trends and the genres that I like is important. So I'll give you some bands from both. Here, I'll grab my Spotify playlist right now and I'll give you some stuff that I've been listening to. So the new Felicity album, specifically Highs and Lows and Wish You Weren't Here. Chef's Kiss Good, if you like that genre. It's a little pop punky. Full disclaimer here, full disclosure, pop punk is my favorite genre. I discovered it when I was 13 and I never grew out of it. So I blame Blink-182 and their Dude Ranch and Enema of the State albums for my love of the genre. So Felicity is a newer-ish band in that genre. They just released a new album, and Highs and Lows and Wish You Weren't Here are amazing. I've played the shit out of those two songs lately. I really like Friend Circle. I like Unwell. I like Attic Stories. I'm just going through my list here, just naming off random shit. I love Knuckle Puck. I love Stay Champs. I love Wonder Years. I like older stuff. I mentioned Blink. I like Newfound Glory. I like Alkaline Trio a lot. Bayside, A Day to Remember. Like really older stuff like MXPX. I like The Descendants. Really old, like Ataris, Rufio. I like stuff with a lot of D beats. So like the faster and punkier the beat, the more I tend to like said song. So yeah, that's a little bit of like what I like and what I've been listening to recently. But then like I'll also I listen to stuff outside of that genre, even though it's my favorite. Like I love video game music, JRPG music. I love classical music. Today I was rocking some Beethoven. I was listening to Moonlight Sonata. I was listening to some Chopin. Actually, earlier this morning when I was doing some embryo machine work. So I like that, but then like I'll also like I like some pop stuff. I like some radio stuff. I really like I really been into Olivia Rodrigo lately. Believe it or not, good for you. Trader, driver's license. I like that stuff too. I won't hide that I'm a bit of a mark for Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift stuff. So I mean, I like a lot of different things. I've even got a George Strait song on my Spotify playlist. So I can be a little bit all over the place in terms of like what I'll listen to. But like if you sit me down and say like you can only listen to one genre for the rest of your life, yeah, I'm going to choose pop punk all day long. I should also mention that Neck Deep. I love Neck Deep. Anyway, that's enough of that. Hopefully that answers your questions. Hey, Landiston Motion City soundtrack. Absolutely. I've got some Motion City soundtrack on here. In fact, let me pull it up. Which song do I have? It is off the This Is For Real album, and I can't remember. Where is it? The Conversation. So it's pretty slow, but I do like some Motion City. Everything is all right is pretty all right. Okay. Next question. Hopefully that answers your question, Aiken. How do you choose which platform to release your campaigns on? I've seen companies use both GameFound and Kickstarter. Would you consider a different platform? Yeah, so GameFound's interesting. They started off as sort of a pledge manager platform, and then last fall, October maybe, they launched, they sort of rebranded as an alternative to Kickstarter, where you don't just have to use them as a pledge manager, which you can still do that. They have that option when you sign up as a creator and go to launch your project. You can just import your Kickstarter campaign into their project, and it can act as sort of a late pledge option. Now, we wouldn't do that with GameFound because we already use a pledge manager as our late pledge platform. But now that GameFound is offering the ability to run full crowdfunding campaigns, we are looking into that. Been looking into it for a little bit, for a couple months actually. We'll probably utilize GameFound at some point. It is a way to get around the 3 project maximum on Kickstarter. I mean, it's not like we're going to be running like 6 projects a year between Kickstarter and GameFound, but I think there are certain projects that we have that would probably actually fit GameFound better than Kickstarter, and we will likely use GameFound for that. And we might utilize that platform for one of those projects sooner than you think. A couple more questions here. One more from me. This is Aiken. How big of a risk is to local? How big of a risk? I'm guessing I'm supposed to say is it. How big of a risk is it to localize / publish a Japanese RPG? It's pretty fucking big risk. Big risk for a couple reasons. In board games, you spend most of your money on printing the game. Not a lot of money like translating and designing it, because there's only so much text, there's only so many design elements in a board game. Now, of course, that varies. You can always have the Gloomhavens of the world that have a ton of text and a ton of components, but generally speaking, Japanese games are small form games, which means you're only ever working with so much text and so many components. So you spend a good amount of money, on localizing and designing that game, and you spend the most of your money on printing, though. Japanese tabletop games tend to either be just the exact opposite or an equal amount of money localizing the game as you do printing the game. So the risk is pretty big. For that reason, it's also big because the Western world doesn't have a lot of Japanese tabletop role-playing game experience, and so there's not as much market data out there. There's not as much market research out there to tell you, does the market want it? And if they do they want your game? Embryo Machine Fan Contest Deets asks Rogue earlier in the stream. Check that out. Though I think, Rogue, you were here for that, maybe. Oh, maybe. I don't know. Although, Rogue, I think you catch the show on playback. I don't know. Too many Rogues. I don't know if Rogue in the stream chat is the same as Rogue Knight in Discord. I should ask that. Hey, Rogue in the stream chat, are you the same as Rogue Knight in Discord? I feel like I should know this by now. I don't. Fuck. Sorry. Sai asks, how do you explain your current occupation to somebody not familiar with your line of work? Oh, yeah, that's always a fun one. Because people are like, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, yeah. Early on, I was like, oh, yeah, localized board games. And they're like, you what? To what? Like, I localized board games. And they're like, A, what does localized mean? And what do you do with board games? So I stopped using the word localized with casuals, with filthy casuals. So then I moved to I translate Japanese board games. I have a company that translates Japanese board games, and we publish them for the English market. And people are like, "What? You do what?" So finally, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I own a board game company. We make board games." And people are like, "Oh cool, like Monopoly." And I'm like, "Fuck off." Okay, Rogue in the chat is one and the same with Rogue Knight. All right, I feel like I probably knew that, but I got nervous. Rogue. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't care about you. I really do. Just wanted to make sure I had my wires right. If you had 3 words to describe Picaresque Roman, what would those words be? Narrative driven, accessible, all one word, stylish as fuck. Hero, aka Jake. I know I've been hounding you with Wild Hunt Festival rule specifications. Yes, you have, Hero. I don't mind, but you are, that is accurate. But with the addition of new mechanics in DLC 2, what can you tell us about the process of asking the Liner Note team questions and playtesting new things as they're translated? Yeah, so we have, and it sort of depends. For the DLC, it's been more of like email threads, but typically we either have a shared document, like a shared Google Doc, where we put all of our questions into that Word doc as we're playtesting the game that usually Ramo, but sometimes other members of the team can go in and answer in real time. So we'll like leave a bunch of questions at the end of our playtest session. Ramo will get to us, will answer us usually overnight because of the time difference. So I'll wake up the next day, I'll see all the answers, bring it to the team. Okay, this, and this. All right, cool. Then we should change the wording here. We should keep the wording here, et cetera, et cetera. Now with the DLC, we haven't done a living doc and we've actually just done email threads. I don't know when and why we changed to email threads for the DLC, but nevertheless, that's what we did for DLC 1 and that's what we've done for DLC 2, where I've just created an email thread and we keep a running list of playtester questions. And it sort of works in the same way, except it's not in real time. I send those things at the end of the night. He usually sends me an email back the next day or the next night. And that's how it happens. Everything happens either through email or in a Word doc, in the comments section of a Word doc or something like that. And we found that that's worked for us. You know, having Ramo be bilingual has been extremely fucking helpful. Extremely helpful. So while there are plenty of questions that have been asked about rule specifications and edge situations, by and large, not only can we answer those, but we also had good direction from the beginning, and so it allowed me to learn the game in a way where I can answer those questions pretty quickly. Because most of the time, all the questions that are asked in the chat, I'm just answering those myself. But there are some times that I'll reach out to Rama, like, "Hey, I think I know the question, but let me just make sure with you." So it's a pretty smooth process that we have down, especially for playtesting and answering questions. Most of the time, the things that we come up against in playtesting, they've also already come up against. And like, oh yeah, we encountered this too, and here's what it means. And I'm like, oh yeah, we should write that like sentence or that modification into the rules or into the card description or the skill description or what have you. So it's been very seamless, and a lot of that is in part due to Ramo being able to, you know, get back to us in English and be able to understand what we're asking and then convey his answer in English as well. So that actually has allowed us to work a lot faster. Because when you're doing a translation, you know, it's oftentimes not one-to-one. So like, you know, you'll get your answer and it's like, all right, I'm translating this. Okay, I think I understand that. But, oh, you know what? This word in this context, it's a little confusing based on the answer. So then you got to go back to them. And so just being able to communicate back and forth in English has actually been extremely helpful to the process and has kept the process always moving forward. It's kept it smooth, and it's been really easy, I think, at least for our team, to have that kind of communication with Ramo. Last questions. If you tally everything up in the end, how much of a project's cost, ratio-wise, obviously, ends up being production and shipping versus dev, staff plus licensing? Does that change based on the project? I assume at least it changes between board games and TTRPGs. Yeah, so all of that is dependent on the project. All of it is dependent upon the contract terms, what was negotiated, what the designers want, what they don't want, what we don't want. So a lot of that, like that cost of like where do you spend more money depends on the type of project. It depends on the contract that was written. It depends on the team you're working with. It depends on what your needs are of that project. It depends on what you think the customer's needs are from that project. All of that gets factored into the cost. I'm not going to go into numbers because it's probably a little boring for some people, and some things I do like to just keep to ourselves. But by and large, I would say that for board games and card games, you spend more money on production and shipping. Yeah, I said it in passing before, but like, Gun and Gun went from a project that was going to cost us $45,000 to ship to backers, and with a single change, it's going to cost us closer to $30,000 on top of the printing costs of that. So we're not spending anywhere near that in personnel and licensing. So for board games and card games, most of the time you're going to spend more money, almost every time, on production and shipping. And because of the rise in shipping, certainly it's truer than ever that's where you're going to spend the bulk of your money. Now, I alluded to this before. I didn't even allude to it. I just said it. With TTRPGs, it's different because the cost is less on a TTRPG to produce it, depending on what it is that you are offering to the customer. Books are cheaper to ship, even with this rising shipping costs situation that we're currently in. But you spend a fuck ton of money translating, editing, proofing, and playtesting a massive, sprawling role-playing book that's all text, all words, than you do a game that just has text and a rulebook and on some cards. So you either spend more money in the staff and licensing cost, because typically TTRPG designers want a higher royalty because, and rightfully so, they put a lot of work into that thing. I mean, board games are a shit ton of work too. Do not get me wrong there. Ton of work. But it's different when you're designing a board game and then when you're designing a game in a book. That's what a TTRPG is. It is a massive novel that just happens to talk about novelty stuff and also game mechanics. So you've created the game and then you've written a bunch of stuff. And so TTRPG designers typically want a higher royalty. So you spend more money there, and you spend more money actually developing the game and localizing the game. But, for Picaresque, it's going to be different in terms of how much money you spend on the production side of things, because what we're offering through the campaign is not just like a book. We could have gone just the route of like, here's a book, here's a softcover book, here's a hardcover book, those are your options. Or like, you only get one option and you get a PDF option, and there, our campaign's done. Like, that totally works for some people. That's a very viable path forward. I didn't want to do that though. So we've got a lot of extras in there that have driven up the cost of printing. It will drive up the cost of shipping. It's totally throwing out that ratio, that production versus personnel and licensing ratio, to where they're about even. I could have probably run a cheaper campaign, and therefore my margins for profit would be wider. But I don't really care. I want to be able to offer the items that we're offering because they're really awesome. So again, it kind of depends on the group or the project. Last question here. A part of the Japanese hobby culture is centered around idol shows, groups, concerts, etc. Will Linewing ever localize an idol-related game? What is your personal enjoyment of such products? So My answer 13 years ago, when I was a younger man, would be different than my answer now. There was a time when I had imported a Japanese Xbox 360 because it was the king of bullet hell shooters there for a while. And the only way that you could play all of those Japanese exclusive Xbox 360 bullet hell shooters was with a Japanese 360. So early on in the Japanese 360's life, I imported a Japanese 360 and played a ton of cave shooters, Mushihime Sama and Bullet Soul, Dodonpachi, right? All that stuff. But along in that process, you know, Microsoft was spending a ton of money in Japan trying to gain traction with the 360 there. And so the 360 actually has like not only a wealth of shmup options, but it's got a wealth of visual novel options. But then it's also got like a pretty sizable catalog of like random Japanese exclusive games. And one of those random Japanese exclusive games or series, because there's actually multiple, is a couple Idolmaster games. And so that was 2008. I was really into Idolmaster, actually, primarily because, I mean, I liked the series and all. That was a huge part of it, but also because one of my favorite illustrators was the main character designer, illustrator, and art director for Idolmaster. And that was the same artist who handled all of the character designs and was the art director on the Lunar series, along with Albert Odyssey for the Sega Saturn, along with Phantasy Star Zero for the DS, and then even branched out into other anime before moving on to Idolmaster. Mostly like anime you haven't heard of, but was a prominent artist and art director on the Batman Gotham Knight series, or on that like compilation of shorts. So I got an Idolmaster because of him. Not because of him, but that was one of the reasons that I got an Idolmaster. And I was really, really into it. But in 2008, you know, I was 23, something like that. So the idol genre has always felt to me, there's no age on any genre, let me just say that. But for me, it felt like a young genre. And it made sense why I liked it so much then. I like the idol genre now. I mean, hell, I think I've gone on record to say that my favorite anime is Perfect Blue, which isn't an idol film, but its story centers around idol culture and a trio, an idol trio. And really, that movie is more about a commentary on the rigors of what it's like to be an idol. And there's a lot of metaphors in that movie and allegories to the torment and the horrible standards and cultures that surround idol groups and idol culture in Japan. But still, although the movie is more of a suspense thriller / horror of someone stalking and trying to kill this one particular idol, it's still about idols, right? So my favorite anime of all time has that in it. So clearly, I like the genre, and as I talked about Idolmaster, loving it. But it'll never be the genre that I go to. It'll, like, if someone laid out a bunch of genres and said, "Hey, here are all the genres you could choose from when localizing and publishing your next game." An idol game would not likely be my first choice. Realistically, it wouldn't be my second choice, or my third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, or 10th choice. It'd have to be pretty special for it to crack the top 10. But that doesn't mean that like if the right game came along, I wouldn't consider it. Because again, I got a history with that genre. And at one point I had a huge love of it. I've just kind of, you know, me and the idol genre have grown apart, as they say in breakups, right? Plus, you know, I don't know if idol stuff really fits with the vision and mission statement of Linewing. Like, I'd like to think that when you look at our games that we have right now, you're like, A, oh, that's a Linewing game. And B, okay, I kind of know what Bradley's about. Like, I kind of understand him based on his game choices. It would feel kind of weird if we had an idle game in there. I think people would be like, huh, they don't really seem like the company to do that. Not because I have anything against that genre, but because, like, I have a very specific thing that I like. You know, look at Gun and Gun, look at Testament, Wild Hunt Festival, Embryo Machine, Picaresque. It all, like, right? It all, there's a thread. There's a thread in all of those things. So it would have to be the right game from the right designer with the right art, the right contract. There'd have to be a lot of things that would have to be right for me to choose it over other things. I mean, there's so many tabletop games coming out of Japan anymore. It's like you really have to be choosy because there's so many, and there's so many good ones. And I don't think, I'm just trying to be realistic, I don't think I would ever choose an idle game over another game that was equally as interesting or as awesome or had a different setting. I think I would always choose the other game. So, but in, you know, in this line of work, you learn never to say never. So I will not say that Lionwing will never localize and publish an idle game. But right now it is not in the cards. Now someone's going to come along and be like, hey, did you see this idle game? And I'm going to be like, fuck, the game looks awesome. I want to publish that. That would be my luck. The minute that like I draw a line or I take a hard stance on something, someone's like, yeah, but have you seen this? And I'm like, oh, I had it, but I want it. that's so something I would do. Okay, that's it for questions. 2 hours and 13 minutes later, I think we're done. Normally I'd go into some tabletop gaming news stuff and provide some analysis or commentary on that, but I'm not going to do that because we're already at 2 minutes or at 2 minutes. I wish we were at 2 minutes right now. My throat wishes we were at 2 minutes and 13 seconds right now, but instead we are at 2 hours and 13 minutes right now. So I will just say that I'm very happy to see Avatar Legends take off in the way that it has. Avatar, The Last Airbender, not the alien people Avatar, is getting a tabletop role-playing game adaptation, which looks killer. I'm so excited. I mean, Avatar is such a good property. Not surprised to see that project doing as well as it's doing. They nabbed a really good license and seem to have a really good product. So not only am I excited for that game because, like, as a player, I'm excited for that game. I'm excited to play it. I'm excited that that setting gets explored because The Last Airbender is a killer series. So is Korra, of course. But I'm also excited because selfishly for Lionwing, having a TTRPG pop off right now and do really well is really good for Picaresque. So this came at a perfect time. Perfect time for me as a player, but even better time for me as a guy running a company who's getting ready to launch a Kickstarter campaign for another tabletop role-playing game. So I'm quite pleased with that game doing so well. Water bottle did not make its appearance tonight. No, it didn't, Rogan. That's only because I'm out. I don't have any. Well, actually, I have one bottle, but I regularly drink all of mine, and then and then I go into my wife's stash and drink hers. And I decided I was not going to do that tonight. So instead, this is all I got. Pretty sure a bug just flew out of that cup. God. Okay. see Af is agreeing with the fact that Avatar is a great property, great series. Agreed. Okay, so that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you all for hanging in there with me. This is another 2-hour plus show. Last week was the longest Linewing Talks. It also took almost a full day to upload because I do shoot in 4K and then I don't upload to 4K, but I do upload to 1440. So it takes a long time to get that upload going. This is going to be another one that probably won't go up until tomorrow night, late tomorrow night. But still, a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. There's a lot of stuff happening with Linewing. August is a very crazy month right now. I'm tired. I'm very tired, but very excited because Picaresque's Kickstarter is right around the corner. Also had some great questions tonight. Thank you. Some weeks there's more questions. Some weeks there's less questions. And this week, a lot of good questions. A lot of good questions. I had fun answering them. Keep sending those in. If you can join us live and you want to drop some questions to me in the chat while the show's going on, feel free to do that as well. Thank you to everyone who is checking out the show live or on playback. That means the world to me. Sorry that I talked for 2 hours and 17 minutes and 57 seconds. But again, there was a lot to talk about. So we'll be back again because we do this every Wednesday, 9 p.m. ET on Twitch. It might get a little dicey in September because we're moving from this house and then we're moving to another place temporarily because the house that we bought won't be ready for us to move into until the end of September. So I'm not really quite sure what I'm going to do about Linewing Talks those weeks because I certainly will not have this set up. It'll probably be pretty bare bones. I don't know what's going to happen there, but the last full and complete Linewing Talks until the end of September will be the day after the Kickstarter for Picaresque launches. And spoiler or a heads up, Winona is going to be joining me on stream that night, and it's going to be a special episode of Linewing Talks solely dedicated to what it was like to localize Picaresque Roman from the graphics side of things. What we did with layout, visual elements, graphic design elements, illustrations, the design work that she created herself, because we did a lot of created assets for this project, more than we have for any of the previous projects that we've worked on. That'll be the day after. So it'll be a good time to get into that conversation. You all can ask questions. You can submit questions ahead of time. You can join us and ask questions in real time. If I know anything about Winona, she's probably going to show up overly prepared, and that means with another presentation, because if you were with us for the Gun and Gun localization presentation, you know that she brought a whole deck, a PowerPoint to that talk, and it's likely she'll do that again. It's been a cool localization process for Picaresque. I think this is our strongest project, and I'm not just saying that because it's our current one. I'm saying that because I think it's our best Kickstarter campaign visually, as well as what we're offering, but also I think it's our best localization effort to date, which is really saying something because I think we've had some very strong localizations. This feels sort of like next level, top tier, top shelf stuff. So it'll be fun to talk with her about what went into the process and sharing what that process was like with all of you. A peek behind the curtain, you could say. We did this for episode 2.5 of Linewing Talks when I brought on Tyler, who was the graphic designer for Embryo Machine. And so we've done this a couple times in the past, and we'll be doing it again. That will be the last time that you see this setup until I move into my new place. So stay tuned for what I'm going to do for Linewing Talks after that. I'm going to figure out something. It'll just look a little different. Catching up on the chat here, as I was signing off, I kind of forgot to look at what's going on to our stream. Time to stop painting minis too, I guess. No, it's never time to stop painting minis. What minis are you painting, Lanniston? I'm curious. One of the funnier Linewing Talks, hashtag dad jokes. Bradley's tired. It's only the 4th day of August. That is an astute observation, my friend. I am very tired. And the month is just getting started. Like nothing's actually happened yet. All the stuff that's going to happen in August hasn't happened yet. Oh no. Imagine how September is going to be. Yeah, September's going to be busy too. Because we got some stuff planned I alluded to earlier. I'll talk about that as we get a little closer. I don't know if that'll pop off in September, but we'll probably be talking about it in September or close to September. I'm hoping September, though, is sort of like a come down month where I can just kind of like breathe. Because, we'll be wrapping up the campaign in the second-ish week of September from Picaresque. Oh, I'll be moved into the new house by the end of the month. Hopefully September is a better month than August. I'll tell you that much. App says, wake him up when September ends. I'm guessing that's a Green Day reference. Yay, Winona. I need that redo of the gun and gun video, please. Yeah, we still need to do that. Cause we did record that whole talk, but the audio is terrible. And me and audio quality and video quality, I won't post that stuff if I think it's garbage, and it's garbage, which is too bad because the content and what we actually presented on was amazing. The conversation was amazing. But yes, we still need to talk about that and redo that. And as I've talked about before in the past, I'd actually like to do that once Gun and Gun is about to be fulfilled. So we are going to do that. Just it's not on tap for September. Might be on tap for the end of September, but I meant to say it's not on tap for August, and it might be on tap for September, though it'd be at the end. Likely on tap for October when fulfillment is likely to start. So, some sandworms. Okay, very good, Landison. That's what he's painting. Cool. All right, folks. That'll do it for me tonight. Thanks so much for sticking with me. Hopefully, it was entertaining. Hopefully, you got some news. Hopefully, you're stoked about what's in the pipe, and what's coming down, and what we're going to be releasing. And we still got some more stuff to announce later in this year, which we're excited about. So, it's been real. I've been Bradley. We're out of time. I'll see you next week. Take care, all.